It started as a joke, the kind of stupid idea teenagers throw around at midnight when the world feels invincible and fear is just a word. 4 friends, Jake, Emma, Ryan, and Chloe, were sitting in Ryan's old Jeep, parked at the edge of Blackridge Woods. The air outside was thick with the damp smell of rotting leaves and something else, something metallic, like rusted iron. Jake lit his last cigarette and blew smoke rings that drifted out into the cold October night. "Come on," he said with a grin, "what's the worst that could happen? We spend one night in the Holloway House and we'll have bragging rights forever." Emma rolled her eyes, pulling her jacket tighter. "People say it's cursed for a reason, Jake. 10 people disappeared there." 10. You think that's a coincidence? Chloe laughed nervously, clutching her phone like a lifeline. "It's just a story. Ghosts aren't real." Ryan, ever the skeptic, smirked. "Exactly. It's just an old house. We go in, take some selfies, spend the night, and leave. Easy." The truth was, the Holloway House wasn't just any old house. It sat like a corpse in the middle of the forest, its windows like hollow eye sockets staring into the void. Locals called it the house that never sleeps because lights had been seen flickering in the windows at night, even though no one had lived there for 50 years. And then there were the screams, distant, faint, like echoes of the damned. They piled out of the Jeep, their breath fogging in the icy night, and headed down the narrow dirt path. The forest seemed to close in around them, trees looming like skeletal guardians. By the time they reached the house, the moon was high, casting silver beams across rotting wood and broken shutters. The Holloway House stood in silence, waiting, its black silhouette jagged against the sky. Jake smirked. "Well, here it is. Home sweet home." He pushed the rusted gate open with a groan that sounded almost like a scream. None of them noticed how the air turned colder, heavier, tasting faintly of blood. The Holloway House loomed before them like a sleeping beast. Its once grand facade was now a skeletal ruin, windows shattered, ivy clawing its way up the cracked walls, the front door sagging on rusted hinges like a gaping mouth. The air was different here, heavy and almost humming, as if the house itself was breathing. Jake grabbed the brass doorknob, its chill biting into his palm like frost. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said with a smirk, "welcome to hell." The door creaked open with a sound that echoed like a dying scream. Inside, the smell hit them first, damp wood, mildew, and something coppery, something wrong. The hallway stretched ahead, cloaked in shadows, the peeling wallpaper sagging like dead skin. Ryan flicked on his flashlight, its beam slicing through the gloom, catching motes of dust that danced like tiny ghosts. "Holy shit," Emma whispered, her voice barely audible. "It's like stepping into a tomb." Chloe clutched her phone tighter, the bright glow of the screen her only comfort. "Guys, do you hear that?" They all froze. In the silence, a faint creak echoed above them, slow and deliberate, like footsteps. Jake forced a laugh. Probably the house settling. But even as he said it, a cold bead of sweat slid down his spine. They moved deeper, their footsteps echoing on warped wooden floors. The walls seemed to close in, whispering secrets in a language none of them understood. At the end of the hallway, an old staircase spiraled upward into darkness, its banister carved with intricate symbols that seemed to writhe when the light touched them. "We're seriously doing this?" Emma muttered, glancing back at the door. But the door wasn't there anymore. Where the entrance had been was now an unbroken wall of decaying wood. "What the fuck?" Ryan breathed, his voice cracking. Jake spun around, disbelief etched across his face. "No way. We didn't move. The door was right there." Panic slithered through the group like smoke. The house had swallowed their way out. They pressed on, deeper into the bowels of the house, because what else could they do? Every door they tried was locked or led to rooms that made no sense, rooms where furniture hung from the ceiling like grotesque ornaments, or where windows opened to nothing but black void. The air grew heavier, thicker, pressing against their chests like a physical weight. "Do you feel that?" Chloe whispered, hugging herself. "It's like something's watching us." Ryan scoffed, but his voice lacked conviction. "This place is just old. That's all." But then Emma saw it, the photograph. It lay on a broken dresser, half buried under dust and cobwebs. She brushed it off with trembling fingers and gasped. "Guys, look at this." They gathered around. It was a family portrait, faded and yellowed, showing a man, a woman, and 2 children. Their faces were blurred, smeared like melting wax, except for their eyes. Those remained sharp, dark, and impossibly deep, as if staring straight into their souls. Chloe shivered violently. "I don't like this. Let's just find a way out." But when they turned, the hallway behind them had changed. It was longer now, stretching into darkness that pulsed like a living thing. And then came the sound, a soft giggle, high-pitched and innocent. A child's laughter. They spun around, flashlights sweeping wildly. Nothing. Only shadows, writhing like snakes on the walls. "Okay," Jake said, his voice shaking. That was real, right? You all heard that?" Before anyone could answer, the giggle came again, closer this time, followed by the sound of tiny footsteps scurrying across the floorboards above. The house wasn't empty. Something else was here with them. Something that sounded playful. Ryan was the first to find the room. He pushed open a warped wooden door that groaned like something alive, revealing a chamber drenched in shadows. His flashlight beam swept across the walls, and his breath caught in his throat. "Guys, you need to see this." The others crowded behind him, peering inside. It was a mirror room, every wall, every corner, even the ceiling covered in cracked, dust-coated mirrors. Some were tall and elegant, framed in gold now tarnished green with age. Others were jagged shards nailed haphazardly into the plaster. But what chilled them wasn't the sheer number of mirrors. It was what they reflected. Jake stepped inside slowly, his boots crunching on shards of glass. His reflection stared back at him, pale and distorted, eyes hollow pits. "This is creepy as hell," he muttered. Chloe shivered violently, gripping Emma's arm. "Do you notice it?" Emma whispered. "The reflections, they're not moving with us." And she was right. When Ryan lifted his arm, his reflection stayed frozen, its glassy eyes locked on him with a sick grin slowly stretching across its face. "What the fuck?" Ryan breathed, stumbling back. Suddenly, all the reflections moved at once, smiling, grinning, baring teeth too sharp, too long. Then came the scratching sound, a deafening screech like nails on glass, as cracks spiderwebbed across every mirror at the same time. And then, something stepped out. It wasn't human. It was a reflection, but twisted, elongated, its limbs jerking unnaturally as if pulled by invisible strings. Its face was a warped parody of Ryan's, its mouth split ear to ear, dripping black sludge. The lights flickered violently as it lunged. Ryan screamed as the thing slammed him into the floor, its jaws snapping inches from his throat. Jake grabbed a broken mirror shard and plunged it into the creature's side. It shrieked, a sound so inhuman it rattled their bones, before collapsing into black smoke that slithered back into the glass. For a moment, silence. Then every mirror shattered at once, raining shards like razor-edged rain. When the echoes faded, the walls were bare, and Ryan was gone. Jake and Emma stumbled out of the mirror room, pulling Chloe with them, their lungs burning as they ran. They didn't speak, they didn't need to. Ryan was gone, swallowed by something that shouldn't exist. The hallway twisted beneath their feet, elongating like a serpent, doors sliding along the walls as if the house itself was rearranging its bones. Finally, they burst into a large room that might have once been a library. Tall shelves lined the walls, their wood rotting, books spilling like gutted corpses. Dust swirled in the stagnant air. Chloe dropped to her knees, sobbing into her hands. He's dead, oh God, Ryan's dead, shut up. Jake snapped, his voice cracking. Don't say that. We can still find him. But his eyes betrayed the lie. Emma wandered to a table in the center of the room, her flashlight beam falling on something that made her stomach twist, a journal, leather-bound, its surface slick with something dark and dried. Blood. The pages were yellowed, brittle, each one filled with frantic handwriting, the ink smeared and blotched like tears. She read aloud in a trembling voice, October 12, 1923. They won't let me sleep. The voices, they keep calling my name. The mirrors show things that aren't mine. The children, oh God, the children laugh when I cry. This house isn't a home. It's a mouth. And it's hungry. Emma's breath caught. The last page was written in jagged letters, so hard the pen had torn through the paper, you can never leave. And beneath it, a bloody handprint. The floor creaked suddenly, a long, low groan. Jake swung his flashlight toward the sound, and froze. In the doorway stood a child. A little girl, barefoot, her dress torn and stained with something dark. Her hair hung in stringy clumps over her face, and when she looked up, her eyes were gone. Only black pits stared back at them. She tilted her head slowly, unnaturally, and whispered in a voice like splintering wood, "Play with us." Then the lights went out. Darkness swallowed the library as if someone had pulled a black cloth over the world. The only sound was Chloe's rapid, shallow breathing as her phone's dim glow lit up her terrified face. "Where is she?" Jake hissed, fumbling with the flashlight that refused to turn on. Emma's trembling hand found his arm in the dark. "Jake, she's gone." A low giggle slithered through the room, high-pitched and cruel, like a child mocking them from the shadows. "Chloe?" Jake called, his voice breaking. "Stop screwing around." The phone's glow illuminated the floor, scattered books, splintered wood, and something else. A trail of small, wet footprints leading toward the far corner, where a door had appeared that wasn't there before. The sound of a creaking hinge drifted toward them, followed by a whisper so soft they almost missed it, "Come play." Without thinking, Jake ran, shoving the door open. Behind it stretched a narrow corridor that smelled of mildew and iron. The footprints continued, darker now, smeared like something dragged along with them. Jake's voice echoed down the hall, desperate. "Chloe." Emma followed close, but as they rounded a bend, the sound hit them. A scream, sharp, jagged, filled with primal terror. It ripped through the house, then cut off so abruptly the silence that followed was deafening. When they reached the end of the corridor, they found the door. It hung crooked on rusted hinges, carved with deep scratches as if something had tried to claw its way out. Jake shoved it open, heart pounding, only to find an empty room. Empty, except for Chloe's phone lying on the floor, its screen flickering with static. And on the wall above it, scrawled in what could only be blood, were 3 words that made Emma's knees buckle: "She's with us." The door slammed behind them. The slam shook the walls, and dust rained down like dead snow. Emma screamed, spinning around, but the door had vanished. Where solid wood had been, there was now only wallpaper, peeling in strips like old flesh. Jake pounded his fists against it until his knuckles bled. No. No, no, no. His voice cracked like dry wood. Then came the whispers. At first, faint, like leaves rustling. But they grew louder, overlapping, a cacophony of voices, some sobbing, some laughing, all whispering words that twisted through their ears like worms. Emma clamped her hands over her ears, but it didn't help. The voices were inside her skull, crawling under her skin. He's lying. She's already dead. You'll never leave. Suddenly, the whispering stopped. A silence so deep it pressed against their eardrums. And then a single voice spoke, clear, sharp, and dripping with malice. Jake, they froze. The voice came from behind them. Slowly, they turned, and there she was. Chloe. Or what used to be Chloe. Her head lolled to one side, her hair hanging like a wet curtain. Her skin was ashen, stretched too tight, and her mouth was carved into a smile that split her face in two. Blood dripped from the corners like ink. Her eyes were black pits filled with writhing shadows. She tilted her head, bones cracking, and whispered, "Don't you want to stay with us, forever?" Then she lunged. Jake tackled her, screaming, as her nails raked down his back, peeling skin like wet paper. Emma grabbed a broken chair leg and swung with every ounce of strength, shattering Chloe's skull with a sickening crack. Her body collapsed in a heap. But as Emma's sobs echoed in the silence, Jake stared in horror. The body was melting, seeping into the floor like black tar, until nothing remained. And the whispers returned, louder than ever. The whispers didn't stop as they stumbled through the twisting corridors, searching for escape that never came. The house had no shape now, no logic, stairs that led nowhere, doors that opened into brick walls, windows that showed only endless black void. Then they saw it, a staircase spiraling down into darkness, yawning like a throat. "No," Emma whispered, shaking her head violently. "We're not going down there." But they had no choice. The walls behind them began to pulse, veins bulging through the plaster, leaking black ichor that dripped like tar. The air reeked of decay. Jake grabbed her hand. "We move, or we die." Down they went, the steps groaning under their weight. The deeper they descended, the colder it became, until their breath came in white puffs. Finally, they reached the bottom, a vast chamber carved into the earth, lit by the sickly glow of candles that floated in midair. The floor was slick with something dark and sticky. And in the center stood an altar. Upon it lay bodies, desiccated husks with hollow eyes and mouths frozen in screams. Around them, symbols burned in crimson fire, pulsing like living wounds. Emma's stomach heaved as she recognized a face among the corpses. Ryan. His skin stretched tight over bone, his lips sewn shut with black thread. Suddenly, the ground trembled. The corpses twitched, their heads jerking toward the intruders. Their mouths opened wide, ripping the stitches, and from their throats poured a sound that wasn't human, a chorus of agony and hunger. The shadows rose then, peeling off the walls like living ink, swirling into a monstrous shape with too many limbs, too many eyes, its mouth a gaping void filled with teeth that spiraled into infinity. The house wasn't haunted. The house was alive. And it was starving. The altar split apart as the thing rose, its form shifting, stretching, blotting out the dim light. It had no face, yet 1,000 screaming mouths opened across its body, vomiting shadows that crawled like centipedes. The walls pulsed like beating hearts, veins bulging and bursting with black blood that rained down on them, Emma and Jake ran, slipping on the slick floor, as the creature's limbs slammed down, shattering stone. This isn't real. It can't be real. Emma sobbed, but the agony in her muscles, the stench of death, it was all too real. The house convulsed around them, rooms folding, corridors twisting, stairs snapping like brittle bones. They stumbled into what had once been a grand hall, now a nightmare of writhing walls and gaping holes that breathed like lungs. From every shadow, faces emerged, Ryan's, Chloe's, even strangers they'd never met, all grinning, all whispering in unison, "Stay. Stay. Stay." Jake grabbed Emma's arm, pulling her toward a faint glow ahead. A door, a real door, stood at the far end, its surface gleaming white, untouched by decay. Salvation. They sprinted, their lungs burning, the whispers rising to screams behind them. The creature howled, a sound that shattered the chandeliers overhead, raining glass like razors. A black limb shot out, wrapping around Jake's waist, yanking him back. He roared, slashing at it with a jagged shard, but the grip tightened, crushing bone. "Run!" he screamed, his voice breaking. Emma reached for him, tears blinding her, but the door was so close, so damn close. "G.O.!" he roared again, before the shadows swallowed him whole, dragging him into the screaming abyss. Emma stumbled forward, hand outstretched, and slammed into the door with everything she had. It burst open in a blinding light. Emma fell through the doorway and onto cold, wet grass. The night air hit her like a slap, sharp and clean after the stench of death. She gasped, sobbing, as she looked back. The Holloway house loomed in the distance, its silhouette black against the blood-red dawn. For a moment, nothing moved. No whispers, no screams. Just silence. Then, slowly, the front door closed on its own. Emma staggered to her feet, every muscle screaming, and stumbled toward the road. Her phone was gone. Jake was gone. Everyone was gone. She ran until the house was just a memory etched in darkness. Hours later, a passing truck picked her up, the driver staring at her pale face and blood-soaked clothes. "What happened to you, miss?" he asked gently. Emma stared at him with hollow eyes, her voice barely a whisper. "They're still in there." The man frowned. "Who?" Her lips trembled. "The house. It eats people." His face paled, and for a moment, the engine noise was the only sound. Then, slowly, he smiled. Too wide. His teeth glimmered in the dim light, sharp and wrong. Emma's stomach dropped as the locks clicked shut on the doors. The driver's voice came, low and gleeful, "We've been waiting for you." And from the radio, faint but growing louder, came the sound of children laughing. The truck rolled down the dark road, back toward Blackridge Woods. Back toward the house that never sleeps. And Emma realized the truth too late. You don't escape the Holloway house. You just bring it with you.